welcome back to the Wellness Paradox podcast. I'm so grateful that you can join us on this journey towards greater human flourishing. As always, I'm your host, Michael Stack, an exercise physiologist by training and a health entrepreneur and a health educator by trade. And I'm fascinated by a phenomena I call the wellness paradox. This paradox, as I view it, is the trust, interaction, and communication gap that exists between fitness professionals and our medical community. This podcast is all about closing off that gap by disseminating the latest, most evidence-based, and most engaging information in the health sciences. And to do that in episode 79, we're joined by Lauren Shroyer. Lauren's from the American Council on Exercise, and she works in product development and innovation. And this is going to be a conversation in part around one of ACE's tools, their Compass platform, which is an education platform for ACE professionals right now, eventually to be disseminated to the broader public. But more generally speaking, we're going to talk about professional development as a fitness professional. And Lauren has a very unique perspective on this, given the many years she spent in the industry, but also the various sectors of the industry that she's spent time in. I think you're really going to find her perspective refreshing and insightful, but also very actionable and informative. Any information we'd like to share with you from today's episode can be found on the show notes page by going to wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 79. Please enjoy this conversation with Lauren Shroyer. Well, welcome back to the Wellness Paradox podcast. Today, we're delighted to be joined by Lauren Shroyer. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Michael. This is great.
So I'm really excited to have this conversation. You were connected to me by our good friend, Graham Milstrand, who works with you at the American Council on Exercise. And we were talking about what you do for ACE and kind of your passion and being involved in this industry. And I just thought, wow, we could have a really great conversation around career development for fitness professionals, because that's a lot of what you do. So that's kind of the discussion we're going to have today. But I'd like you to tell our audience a little bit more about your background before we launch into that.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I've been in the fitness industry for a while. My route to where I work today is a little bit circuitous. My undergraduate degree is in psychology. I got a graduate degree in kinesiology, athletic training. I worked in the athletic training room for a few years. I taught, I oversaw the student trainers, worked with athletes mostly in the rehabilitation side of the world, and then had an opportunity to move into fitness. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. It's kind of a passion of mine. What could I do here, right? So became a personal trainer, worked with folks who had chronic injuries and chronic pain, and then worked on the business side of the fitness industry at studios. After that, I had my own business as a personal trainer. I did continuing education seminars. And then we moved, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to start my own business down here where I live now in the San Diego area. And that was a lot harder to get off the ground than I thought. But I really lucked out. And somebody that I knew who was an investor, who had been an investor in a company where I ran the operations some years back, called me. He had invested in another company, wanted to see if I'd be interested in talking to them a little bit. And it was an awesome, exciting startup company, Gain Fitness, still around today. And I got to work there for several years. So working in fit tech was a pretty exciting jump from what I had done before. And now I'm here at ACE. I've been at ACE for about 6 years. I've been in the product development department the entire time. I'm the vice president of product and innovation. So I oversee what we build, all the education courses that we build, the study programs for the certifications, as well as the new career support resources that we've built here over the last couple of years.
Yeah, which is great. And that's we're going to talk about some of those career support resources and your experience around it. But before we do that, on the odd chance that one of our listeners is living under a rock and doesn't know about ACE at the American Council on Exercise, can you just provide us a super quick overview of ACE?
Sure. Yeah, ACE has been around since 1985. So most people in the industry have heard of it. But, if you've got listeners who are just starting out, maybe they've not heard of the American Council on Exercise. ACE is a certification organization, started out as a certification organization and has grown from strictly providing certifications to also being an advocacy group for fitness professionals, working with in Washington, D.C., and in other government groups to make sure that fitness professionals are represented. ACE also provides education, so pre-certification education, but also continuing education programs so that professionals can stay on top of their game throughout their career. And most recently, as I was saying, career resources. So ACE is really committed to ensuring that people have a strong, lengthy career in the industry so that they can contribute on an ongoing basis to our mission. And I should have started with this. ACE is a nonprofit. So we're the largest nonprofit certification organization in the United States. And our mission is to get people moving. So it's just, very short, very sweet, but it's really to change lives through movement lifestyle.
Yeah, great. And I interviewed Cedric Bryant for, I think, one of my first podcasts. I can't remember if it was episode 2 or 3. And I remember I said to him, you were my first certification. Like ACE was my first certification. So I think
Awesome.
A lot of us who've been in the industry for a while, maybe ACE was our first certification. You said something there about, having long careers, in the industry. And you've been in the industry for quite a long time. So have I. Let's start with that as our conversation here. And we're going to get into some of the things that you're seeing and you're doing, but why is that such a concern for us to be talking about first and foremost, the idea of a long career?
That's such a great question, Michael. I think for me personally, there are 2 reasons that that's important. Number one is when we at ACE, send out surveys to our customers. One of the questions we ask is, why this industry, right? Why did you choose to become a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, health coach? What is it that drew you to this? And the number one answer by far, 78% of the time, people say, I'm passionate about helping others get well and healthy through this medium that I've chosen. And that's extremely powerful. It's just extremely powerful that people have chosen this industry because of their passion to help others. So it's really important that me as a person, as a part of an organization, help them maintain that passion to help others. That's what I'm passionate about. But it's a hard industry. It's hard to get clients. As I said, I moved down to San Diego and I was like, oh, getting clients and starting up a business is hard. It's hard on you, spending hours a week with people, really connecting with them, really understanding them, really getting to know them one-to-one. I would joke that I would spend more time with some of my clients than I would with my husband, like 4 hours a week, intense conversations for 4 hours a week. Probably didn't have that with my husband, right? So it's can be emotionally exhausting. It can be physically exhausting. So it's important to find things that you love and continue to connect with that, and continue to challenge yourself. And that's where that's really where this passion comes from of mine, is to help people to say, okay, through education, how do you challenge yourself through education to continually be excited to go to work the next day and do something different and new? But then as a career, how do you make this viable? How do you get that next client? How do you make it comfortable to be a business person, right? How do you do those things that you need to do to make this a viable career for you so that financially this works as well? Because those are the reasons that we lose people in the industry. They burn out from exhaustion, or they're not able to make it financially. So it's really an important goal.
Yeah, I think you framed that up really well. And I've said this many times. You can have a passion for helping people, but if no one pays you for it, you have a hobby, you don't have a job. And you're not going to be helping people very long, no matter how passionate you are about it. So I think you framed that up really well. And obviously this is an area you have a lot of experience in, just because of your time in the industry, but also because of what you do at ACE. And we have a decent number of listeners to this podcast that are younger, they're earlier in their career, and they're going down this development process, some very intentionally, others, maybe somewhat accidentally. But how do you help fitness professionals think about long-term career development? What's your perspective on what they should be thinking about in terms of this?
Yeah, I think starting out in any career, I think you framed that really well, Michael. Right? Somewhat intentionally, somewhat accidentally.
Yeah.
Right? Like I can't. Sounds like that'd be fun, right? And let's see what comes of it. And I think the one thing that's really important in life and in any career is to maintain curiosity.
Yeah.
And that is extremely important within the fitness industry because fitness is a science. So in the industry, you need to maintain that curiosity about what's new and different about what we're learning about the human body and how it operates, right? A lot of a tech term is, cutting edge or bleeding edge. Being on the bleeding edge of things is like you're the first to know, right? Being on the cutting edge of things is people have researched it a little bit before you start to apply it. And I think being on the cutting edge of curiosity is very important within the fitness industry. But that's also true in technology, is that you have to be on the cutting edge of what is going to help support you as a professional. How is technology helpful to you as a professional? I think too frequently people think, on demand, and that's bad, and this is terrible, and people shouldn't be doing that. Back in the day, it was, well, P90X, that is bad, and that's terrible, and people shouldn't be doing that. And it's like, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
All of it is good. The question is, how do you integrate it as a professional with your clients? How do your clients use it? When do they use it? Why do they use it? When do they need it? So it's all good. And if we start to really look at the world as saying, what are all of these good things and how do I integrate them, instead of putting them into these buckets of bad and good, but instead, how are these relevant? I think that's just one of those things that people really should be thinking about as they enter any career, but certainly entering the fitness industry is as labels of good and bad are pretty prominent within the fitness industry. And I think doing your best to put those aside all of the time and instead looking with curiosity at the industry and at the information, I think that's a really powerful way to walk through life. And to be honest, it's not a way that I walked through life until I was older. It took me a while to get that. So I always want to tell people earlier, and I hope, I think the adage is true: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Yeah. So hopefully somebody's ready to hear that right now and is ready to challenge themselves with curiosity.
Yeah, it's so true that there's so much tribalism in our industry that, this is always right, or that is always wrong, or this is always good and that's always bad. And, the reality that you've learned and I've learned, and I think anyone who has any sort of sustainable career in this industry, is that you kind of got to embrace little bits and pieces from everywhere if you're going to be successful. And we're going to dive into that because I think that the part of this conversation is our industry, like all industries, in present day, is changing at a very rapid pace. You alluded to it a little bit with the technology. So you talked about curiosity being a foundational perspective, and I couldn't agree more. And for those of you that have listened to some of our podcasts that we've done on coaching health behavior change and things related to that, I mean, curiosity is a big, not only career development skill, it also happens to be a very important coaching skill. But in the interest of you answering not curiosity, are there any specific mistakes that you see fitness professionals make as they're starting their career that are really maybe landmines that they may not see coming, that you can let them know before they step on it?
Yes, I think there are some tendencies of humans, but also humans in the industry, and I think it's easy to fall into some habits because you see other people doing them. And I think one of those is this this lone wolf idea. I'm out on my own, right, and I've got to figure this all out by myself. And there's a lot of strength in community. And when you can find like-minded people, other people who have curiosity, other people who know things that you don't know, you start to build this network and community of folks who can support you in your growth. And that's really important. And I think I recommend two things in kind of growing that community. One is to grow a diverse community, a community of people who do not think the way you do. So I say like-minded, but you also need, when I say like-minded, I mean like-minded values, not like-minded lives, right? So, if you've lived a parallel life with somebody, you're thinking very similarly, so it becomes very easy to be in their presence.
Yeah.
But when you have lived, you have different past experiences, you have kind of the honor of receiving a different perspective, a different filter on the same information. And so I think in our industry particularly, obviously as a woman being in the industry for a long time, I think it's essential that women find other women in the industry to connect with. Because it can be particularly hard on women. The world's a little hard on women, but the industry can be particularly hard on women. And also that men and women find groups together where they connect so that they are learning from each other, because that's what creates the change. That's also true of, different racial backgrounds, different religious backgrounds, different, just growing up in different countries and different parts of this country. I'm from Chicago originally. I live in California. I promise it's very culturally different in those two places. Right. So I think getting rid of that lone wolf mentality and instead saying, how do I create a community of people within this industry, can be extremely powerful. And really help you to avoid those mistakes of assumption jumping and kind of getting into a dogma. It really keeps your mind open. I think the other thing that's people don't realize when they get into this industry is you're starting a business as a fitness professional, especially as a personal trainer, regardless of whether you work for yourself or you work for someone else. Your clientele is your clientele. That is your business. And I think the mistake that people make is that somebody owes them something. And it's not an intentionally, I make it sound kind of, intentionally snotty, but I don't think it is. I think it's just like, I didn't get into this business to sell. That's not what I do, right? I'm a scientist. I might have a degree. I got into this business to help people, not to sell. The reality is you can't talk somebody into believing that you have something of value to give to them. To your point earlier, Michael, you're not going to be able to share your gifts and your learnings. So really approaching your career, your clientele as a business is just I think something that people don't learn to do until later. And some of them are just very resistant to it. And I think that's one of the reasons why people don't necessarily shift from this is a hobby to a career. This is like, I'm getting started out, to this is a long-term career. It's the people who take it seriously and upskill themselves in all areas of what they need to provide as a professional. Those are the ones who end up having long and successful careers.
That's great. Yeah, both of those, so important. And I completely agree. Seeing people, make those mistakes, time and time again, and the people who realize that early on are the people that end up, having thriving careers. What does the fitness professional of tomorrow need to know? Like you're at ACE, which is, one of the places on the planet that's, it's your job to think about this. It's your job to serve the professional of the day, but also to say, okay, what does the professional of tomorrow need to know? What are you guys thinking? What are you working on? For that matter, what are you providing right now to build the fitness professional of tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's what's fun for me, right? Is to think about the future.
Yeah.
I'm a realist and an optimist, right? So the realist of me says to look at tomorrow, I need to understand today.
Yeah.
So what's really important to understand about today is that the pandemic had a real impact on the way people view their health and wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it seems logical, but it really had a deep impact. And when we look at, even if you just look at the shift in social media
Mm-hmm.
to mental health
Yeah.
over these last couple of years, the Olympics was a great time. Simone Biles was a wonderful
Mm-hmm.
example of the shift to mental health and the
Mm-hmm.
importance of mental health. Um, the shift has been I'm not joining a fitness facility or getting a personal trainer for weight loss. I'm doing it for wellness. And that shift in the consumer mindset is essential for the fitness professional to know what's coming next. And so number one, what's coming next is um, more consumer products to support that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And fitness professionals need to be continually prepared to integrate those consumer products into the services that they provide to maintain their relevancy.
Yeah.
And in particular, what I'm already seeing is a lot of improved integration between wearables and platforms that make that data both accessible to fitness professionals and actionable.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we're doing right now is I have the great pleasure and fun to talk to CEOs who are starting these companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually on our Compass platform, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit at some point here today, but our ACE Compass platform, we're highlighting these technologies and helping people to really understand how would they use them? How would I use this every day? And how do I use this to build my business, retain my customers, get referrals,
Mm-hmm.
provide services where people are willing to pay me and
Mm-hmm.
pay me more than they did yesterday using these services. How do I stay relevant to them so they're not going to someone else or something else
Yeah.
because they think that that's got a better answer for them? So I think that integration of wearables is happening more and more, but that means that professionals need to understand the data that's coming in from them, right? Well, how do you apply that data? What is what do the steps matter?
Yeah.
They do. Maybe 10,000 steps isn't the optimum number of steps a day. Nobody knows.
Right.
But the change in the number of steps somebody is taking over time matters, right? So that's just the most simplistic data that's coming in today. We have sleep data coming in. We have, heart rate variability coming in. What do these things mean, and how might you use them, or might not you use them to coach your different clients? So I think that is really interesting. The other thing that's happening in conjunction with that is better mediums for self-reported tracking to improve coaching. The thing I always find interesting is sort of that push 10 years ago or more of tracking all of your food. So I won't name. I'm going to try not to name names. That's always my go-to. But it's because none of these platforms are bad, right? They're nothing is bad about them, but man, putting in everything you eat and scrolling through this never-ending list and trying to find it, and then all of a sudden you see the calories pop up at you. That can be very triggering for people who have had eating disorders or really just have a bad relationship with food. So there are new platforms, and in a good way, I will name one of them. 8 is a platform, is a company that we work with today. And what they're really focused on is how do you increase mindfulness in your eating? And they're doing that through taking photographs of food and then answering a few questions about why you chose to eat, what you were thinking about while you were eating. Where were you eating? Were you at your desk? Were you at the table? Were you with friends? Were you alone? Right. So I think there's also this shift from and data collection from raw numbers to what's going to move the needle for people to change their lifestyle. And, 1,500 calories or 1,700 calories or 2,000 calories, for most people, that doesn't move the needle. But understanding why they sat down and chose to eat this bag of chips next to them while they watched TV, that's going to move the needle for them. That's going to change. So, those are some of the really exciting things that are happening right now. This increase in mindfulness, this integration of mindfulness with technology, and this focus on wellness and overall wellness. Those are the things that professionals really need to be aware of and need to understand. How do I integrate that into personal training, right? Because you think, oh, well, that's all not personal training. That's what they do in addition to. No. How do you integrate that into the services you provide to your clients to increase your value to them?
I'd like to take a quick break from today's episode to tell you a little something about one of our sponsors. As all of you are well aware, addressing the wellness paradox is a lifelong passion project for me. And when you're going to go on a long journey, it's difficult to go it alone. You need to find like-minded individuals that are willing to go on that crusade with you. And that's exactly what I found at the MRF Institute. The team over at the MRF Institute creates educational content for fitness and wellness professionals who are serious about becoming a part of our healthcare continuum. Getting on the healthcare continuum is all about leveling up our skills to be looked at as that valued resource provider. The wellness paradox is certainly an avenue for you to do that, but we need many different levers to pull if we're going to get there. And the MRF Institute is definitely one of those levers. You can go to their website, mrfinstitute.org, to find all kinds of great, informative, free informational content. And if you choose to engage with any of their paid content, they've created a coupon code specifically for Wellness Paradox listeners. You can enter in WP 2022, that's WP, and then the number 2022 to the website at checkout to receive a 15% discount on your purchase. I highly recommend you go check out mrfinstitute.org. Now back to today's episode. Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned both of those things because, long gone are the days where our industry, at least this is the direction it's going, where, hey, have better glutes, have better abs. I mean, that was a message of yesterday for a very small segment of the American population. Now it's improve your wellness, improve your health, improve your mental well-being. And I'm also so glad you talked about technology because I think there's a knee-jerk reaction on the part of the fitness professional because of some of the things that happened over COVID to be angry with fitness technologies. Like, I don't want to use fitness technology. The Peloton almost put me out of business. And the reality is that that's a really reductionistic way to look at things. If you can, as you said, use these pieces of technology to add value and efficiency to the service you're providing, then it's a game changer. And I'm glad you brought that up. And on that note, ACE is leveraging technology and resources to help upskill fitness professionals. So let's talk a little bit about some of the great stuff you've done at ACE around Compass and some of the other tools that are available.
Yeah. Honestly, my belief in technology is that technology enhances everything we do. I'm having this conversation with you across the country today.
Yeah, right.
Right. I can see you, I can hear you. It enhances everything that we do. And someday I'll get to meet you in person, Michael, and that'll be awesome. And that'll be even more impactful than the conversations we've already had.
Yeah.
Right. Because it is human connection that is essential to us. So I really just want to reiterate that to professionals. Using technology will never put you out of business because human connection is what really matters to people. And that is your role in people's lives and meeting their lifestyle goals. Is that human connection. And ACE utilizes technology and has for a long time. And I think when I came to work at ACE, even after being in the fitness industry for a long time, I was really surprised at how ACE has utilized technology. I mean, back to cassette tapes back in the day, right? but that was a technological advancement at that time, right? When I started, they had already had online education, and had for years had online education, right? And that was back in 2016.
Yeah.
So what we're doing today is we're leveraging algorithmic technology to personalize the information that we are sharing with our pros. So ACE Compass, which I mentioned earlier, is a perfect example of that. ACE Compass is a platform for professionals to learn about how to build their career. And when you log on to ACE Compass, the first thing you do is you answer 5-6 questions about kind of where you are in your career and your goals in your career. Based on those questions and the answers to those questions, the algorithm begins to determine which of the information that we have is going to be most pertinent to you and what you want. So the next step is that it'll recommend a few challenges. We call them challenges. They're buckets of topics. So if you tell us that you've been in the industry for, say, 2 to 4 years, you are a personal trainer, and you're interested in starting your own business, we might recommend a couple of challenges to you. One might be, the legal side of starting your own business. One might be branding, and another one might be pricing your services. Mm-hmm. And then at that stage, you say, yes, like I want to opt into all these challenges. These are all great, right? Well, we go into a challenge. Now you have articles, you have podcasts, you have, video interviews, you have to-do lists, checklists of things to do to achieve these goals. And that's why we call them a challenge. It's not just an article that you read and you're like, wow, that was super interesting. Check, moving on. This is, hey, apply this to your life. This is time for you to go in and learn and do. So each of these challenges are all about applying the pieces of advice to your career. Yeah. The more you interact with the Compass platform, the more the platform understands what you're interested in. And, it's documenting all of that in the back end so that it continues to recommend for you articles that would be interesting to you. What we've also added is that it'll also recommend to you technology and technological support tools that would be interesting or helpful for you based on what you've told us about your career. So if you tell us, hey, I'm looking for a job and I'm interested in how do I write a resume and how do I, interview well, that's great. Well, we're not necessarily going to show you, well, here's, the best customer relationship management software. Right. We're going to say, hey, here's the ACE job board. Right. And why don't you go over there and check that out and get your resume up on that. Right. So the platform is doing its best in the background to really understand who you are and what you need. The flip side of it is some people just want to browse around and poke around and see what's in there. And we have an Explore tab as well, where you can just go in there and look for articles. The entire time you're doing that, right, it's picking up on what you're doing, so then it can get better and better at making recommendations. So it's very, Netflix style recommendations and experience, and that's what we're building on, right? So that's what we have today is that in the Compass platform, and we're going to continue to build on that to continue to provide more career resources within that platform.
Yeah, when you first told me about this, I said, wow, I don't know about this. If I don't know about this, there's a bunch of people that don't know about this, and they need to, because I started the industry in 1996, right? Which, for those of you that are listening to this, that are doing math, that you were -3 at the time, that's entirely and I would have given anything for resources like that. How do I market myself? How do I brand myself? How do I decide on my pricing? I mean, it's the wealth of experience that ACE has developed over the years, but I love the fact that you're leveraging technology to curate this content for people. Because you use Netflix as an example, but because that's what we're used to. Content that is not relevant and timely doesn't get consumed in this day and age. So I think the Compass platform is very impressive. I've actually just started to create some content for it myself, so I'm excited that I'll be able to contribute to this body of knowledge. Now, where can our audience go if they want to find out more about the Compass platform and just ACE in general? Where do we direct them to?
Absolutely. If you go to www.acefitness.org, that is our homepage. We have a great menu at the top that's going to drop down, and everything that you want to know about ACE is up in that top menu. So if you're just really browsing around about ACE, that's where I would go. Compass.acefitness.org is where you want to go to get directly into Compass. Currently, it is only available to ACE certified professionals. That's temporary. I think we found that there's a great deal of interest in it.
Yes.
So we're looking at different opportunities to make it more widely available. But it was originally conceptualized as a service to our professionals to ensure that they have everything that they need to be successful. So ACE certified professionals are the only ones that are allowed in there today. But yes, we're looking at different opportunities to get more people integrated. And Michael, thank you for contributing to it. I think that's one of the great things about the way that we create content at ACE. The content isn't just created by me and Jackie and Sabrina and Chris. We are part of the creation process. We lead the creation process, but we pull in the great minds in the industry, and we're getting that collaborative insight. And I think that's what makes Compass so valuable. We're asking people who have already done it to share their tips with people who are just starting to do it today.
Yeah, and you said it's collaborative. I had a conversation. Hey, what do you know? What are you good at? I explained that, and then the conversation was, okay, well, how could your professionals use that information? And we co-created what this was going to look like. And certainly when everyone goes to the ACE website, ACE has a number of certifications, and courses, more than what we can mention here. The specialty certifications, I think, are some of the most unique things that ACE offers. So we'll link up to some of these on the show notes page. Would highly encourage you to check out ACE, to engage with them, and maybe re-engage with them. I think, when I started my career, ACE was there. And then as I got into academia and all those other things, I kind of moved away from ACE a little bit, and realizing that the resources that ACE provides are very, very valuable. So we will link up to all of that on the show notes page. Before I let you go, I have to ask you the last question, because it's the question we always end the podcast on. And it's about the wellness paradox, which I consider to be this trust, interaction, and communication gap between fitness professionals and our medical community. And we've talked about this a little bit before, and I know you have some thoughts on this. If you, the person that helps fitness professionals learn and grow, could give those fitness professionals one piece of advice to close off that gap, what would it be?
Oh, yes, we did. We have talked about this, Michael, and it is with my background in athletic training, right, which is kind of under the medical umbrella, right? I've always found it exceptionally fascinating because I was on the outside looking in all of the time as a fitness professional. And when I switched from athletic training to personal training, I never again said I'm an athletic trainer. I work as a personal trainer. That was my job role. That's what I did. So the biggest advice that I would say is don't give up. Create relationships. And there's some really important work happening, right? And as I said before, we're an advocacy group. We have folks that sit on boards, the PAA, C-Rep, Cedric, who you mentioned earlier. He sits on committees with the World Health Organization, with the CDC, right? So we're really integrated with moving the industry forward and integrating more with medical professionals. But that doesn't matter if the doctor down the street doesn't respect what you do. It just doesn't matter what's being talked about at the CDC or the WHO. If your client's chiropractor doesn't know who you are and doesn't respect what you do, then that other stuff doesn't matter. So really the best thing that you can do is begin to develop relationships. Every time your client talks about my doctor said, my chiropractor said, my acupuncturist said, reach out and make a phone call. Hey, would you mind if I go and I talk to your doctor? I would like to call your doctor and just ask about these things. Hi, I'm Lauren Shroyer. I'd like to introduce myself. My client is Michael Stack, and he told me about a couple of things that you had talked to him about, and I would just love to get your insights. What that does is shows the doctor that you are listening,
Yep.
that you're paying attention, that you understand that this is an important medical condition that impacts your choices in program design.
Yep.
Doctors need to know that personal trainers understand that, because right now in their minds, we're a caricature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know, I don't even know that movie where Brad Pitt was the personal trainer because I never saw it, but I still see gifs about it. But just caricature of the dumb jock, we're a caricature of the, sort of the sports bra wearing bimbo, right? That's the caricature of a personal trainer.
Yeah.
We're fighting that every single day. So you have to go out and make those phone calls, create those relationships. The flip side of that, that's how you build your business.
Yeah.
Chiropractors were the number one source of referrals for me.
Yep.
Number one source of referrals for me. And it was not because they just thought, oh, I need a personal trainer's referrals, because they went, oh, you actually know what you're talking about here. I have this client who, are you taking new clients right now? So you have to let them know something better tomorrow, or more tomorrow than they knew yesterday, right? Know more, do better, and let them do that. But you have to be instrumental in that. So I think that is truly the number one thing that you can do, is just bring your best self to every conversation with a medical professional that you have an opportunity to come across, and step into that, and you're going to get doors slammed in your face, and you're going to get people who are going to snub their nose at you, and that's about them, not about you.
Yes.
And I think that's a hard thing to realize, is that's about them. I vividly remember, and actually I just had this weird flashback the other day when I was an athletic trainer, and our orthopedic surgeon had, I don't know, made a decision, made a call. It was different than the pediatrician's call of this athlete that we had. And I'm in the middle somehow of these two doctors. I'll just say, primary care physician or whoever it was from the outside calls me and is yelling at me. It's just yelling at me. And I just was dumbfounded. I was like, I said, number one, sir, I'm passing on a message from another physician. This is not me telling you what to do. Number two, I don't need to sit here and listen to you yell at me.
Yeah.
I said, so I'm going to hang up now, and I'm going to have my doctor give you a call. And I got off the phone, and I was upset, and I was shaking. Today, I realize that was on him, not on me.
Yeah. Yes.
At that moment, I thought that was all about me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I share that story because I was probably 26.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm no longer 26. Outwardly, in my mind, I think I am. But I've learned so much in that time period. So it's hard to call up a doctor when sometimes they're just not going to be nice to you. But I really recommend doing it, because what I've also found is some of them are pretty awesome once they get to know you. And they just didn't know what they didn't know. So let them get to know you.
Awesome. Such great advice. Lauren Shroyer, thank you so much for joining us on the Wellness Paradox.
Thanks for having me, Michael. This was really fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Lauren as much as I did. If you found it insightful and informative, please share with your friends and colleagues. Those shares make a big difference for us. Any additional information we'd like to share with you from today's episode can be found on the show notes page by going to wellnessparadoxpod.com/episode 79. Please be on the lookout for next week's episode when it drops on Wednesday, and don't forget to subscribe through your favorite podcast platform. Until we chat again next week, please be well.